Cabins in the woods are meant to be an escape, a break from the noise of everyday life. But out there, with no neighbours, no cell signal, and nothing but trees for miles, sometimes you find things that were never meant to be found. Or worse, something finds you. These stories come from real people, real experiences. Some of the details have been altered slightly to protect those involved, but what you're about to hear actually happened. And if you've ever stayed in a remote cabin, this might make you think twice before going back. It was supposed to be a chill winter getaway. 5 college friends, 3 guys, 2 girls, rented a small cabin in upstate New York. No Wi-Fi, no phones, no distractions, just snow, hot cocoa, and a break from finals. They arrived on a Friday afternoon, the sun dipping behind the trees as they unloaded their stuff. The place was beautiful in that old, kind of creepy way. Wooden floors that creaked with every step, antlers above the fireplace, and one of those ancient gas heaters that groaned like it was alive. But they didn't care. They were there to unwind. The first night went fine. They played cards, made food, and stayed up too late. Everyone was asleep by 2 a.m., except for Emma. Emma had trouble sleeping, she always had, so sometime around 3:30 she got up to grab water. As she passed the living room, something made her stop. She couldn't explain it, just this feeling, like someone was watching her. She turned slowly toward the large window that faced the forest, and there he was, a man, standing completely still on the other side of the glass. His face was pale, like chalk. His eyes were wide open, no expression, just watching her. Emma dropped her glass. It shattered, waking up one of the guys, Tom. She pointed to the window, stammering, trying to explain, but when he looked, there was no one there. They chalked it up to a dream. Maybe she was sleepwalking, maybe just stressed. But Emma knew what she saw. The next morning they found footprints in the snow leading up to the window, but not away. That night, tension was high. They double-checked the locks, closed every curtain, even pushed a chair against the front door. Still, around 2 a.m., they heard a knock. Just one. Then, 30 seconds later, another. But this time at the back door. Tom and the other guys checked outside with flashlights. Nothing, no one. They were miles from the main road. Nobody should have been out there, especially not in that snow. On the 3rd night, they heard movement inside the cabin. Floorboards creaking upstairs, even though everyone was in the living room. Someone joked it was an animal, trying to break the tension, but no one laughed. Emma finally found a dusty old landline phone tucked away in a hallway cabinet and dialed 911. An hour later, a local sheriff showed up. He did a full sweep of the house and at first found nothing, until he opened the attic. There in the dark, a sleeping bag, some food wrappers and a hunting knife. The man Emma saw in the window, he hadn't just been outside, he'd been living inside the cabin, watching them. The second story comes from a man named Jared, a freelance writer and part-time backpacker who liked to disconnect from the world a few times a year. No phone, no laptop, just a cabin, a notebook, and whatever the forest decided to offer. This time it was a small government-maintained cabin in the Pacific Northwest. He booked it through a Forest Service registry, one of those old ranger shelters built decades ago, now open to the public for cheap. When he arrived, the first thing he noticed was the silence. Not peaceful silence, unnatural silence. No birds, no insects, just trees, the wind and stillness. The cabin itself looked fine, rustic, a little worn. But something caught his eye almost immediately. The back door, a narrow, rotted wooden door on the side wall, was sealed shut, covered in layers of duct tape and nailed with wooden boards in a messy X pattern. He assumed it was an old repair job. Maybe someone tried to keep animals out. He didn't think much of it, until night fell. Around 1 a.m., as he was dozing off in his sleeping bag, he heard it. a soft whispering sound like a voice, but not one you could make out, just low enough that you could almost think it was the wind, except it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from behind the taped door. He froze, turned on his flashlight, but the whispers stopped. He stared at the door for a while, then convinced himself he was overtired. He was alone. It was a forest. Forests make weird noises, right? The next morning, he went outside to clear his head. But when he circled back to the sealed door, something was off. The nails were loose. Some of the tape was ripped, as if someone or something had tried to push the door open from the inside. Still, he didn't leave. That night, the whispering came back, only this time it was louder, more urgent, then scratching, slow at first, then frantic. It sounded like fingernails clawing at the wood. Jared sat up, flashlight shaking in his hand, staring at the door. And then, without thinking, he grabbed the claw hammer near the fireplace and started ripping off the boards. He had to know, he had to see what was back there. The boards fell away. The door creaked open. Behind it wasn't a hallway or even a proper room. It was a small, blackened chamber, no bigger than a closet. The walls were burned. Charred handprints stained the wood. In the center of the floor was a partially burned book, a journal. Inside, the pages were filled with symbols, strange drawings and panicked handwriting. It mentioned something about rituals, sealing, and a presence that must never be released. That was enough for Jared. He grabbed his stuff, bolted out of the cabin, and spent the night in his car miles down the forest road. The next day he stopped by a ranger station to report what he'd seen. The ranger just looked at him quietly, then said, "That cabin's not on our active list anymore. It was condemned 12 years ago, after a fire. There shouldn't have been anyone staying there at all." We like to think of cabins as a retreat from the chaos, a place to breathe, relax, and be alone. But alone isn't always safe. Sometimes being far from people just means no one's around to help you. Emma saw something no one believed until they found the knife in the attic and Jared opened a door that should have stayed shut. These stories aren't just about ghosts or strange people in the woods. They're about how fast isolation can turn to vulnerability, and how, when you're miles from help, even the smallest sound in the dark can mean something is horribly wrong. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Subscribe for more real, disturbing stories every week. And let me know in the comments which story got under your skin the most, or better yet, do you have a cabin story of your own? I'll be reading.